welcome to the 6th edition of the SALT Lunchbox. We're into our 3rd week and we're learning as we go. We want to thank all of you who've continued to participate and welcome anyone who's joining us for the first time. We also apologise that some people did receive reminders to listen in on Good Friday and on Easter Monday when we weren't broadcasting, but we are today. So my name is Dave. I'm the founder of SALT Sport and Life Training. We're a not-for-profit health education company that normally presents in clubs and workplaces on a whole range of topics related to wellbeing and mental health, leadership and culture. Our goal for this Lunchbox webinar series is to inspire and connect you, our audience. To do that, each day we're going to introduce a topic that we hope will inspire you to take action that will benefit both you and those who you love and care for. We're also asking that you will connect with each other during our webinar by sharing your stories, insights or questions through the chat and Q&A icons. On the Q&A, there is a drop-down menu where you can choose to share with panelists and attendees, which we think is a good idea. So if you'd like to click that. We'd love to know who you are and where you're from. So please take a moment to write that in our chat room. And as always, before we get started, we'd like to express our deep appreciation to our sponsors, Eastland, Bendigo Bank and FC Business Solutions. Without your support, these sessions would not be possible. I'd also like to thank and credit Edwina Ricky, who is the author of today's little editorial. The World Health Organization, since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, has stressed the need for social distancing. However, in light of our high quality connections conversation today, I feel it's important that we think about reframing the idea of social distancing to what it really is, which is physical distancing. We need to physically distance, but socially connect. We need to find new ways to make sure that when we do connect, there are at least some of those connections that are of a really high quality during this time when physically we can't be with each other. So what are high quality connections? These are those short-term connections that we have with other people that light us up. When we finish, we leave feeling energized and warm towards the person who we're connecting with. I hadn't really thought about it this way. Some people, when you connect with them, they light you up. They energize you. Have a think. Who has provided you with a light up moment in the last week? Have you had any? And if so, what happened and what impact did it have? Can you think of someone who you spoke to who had that effect on you? And perhaps you might want to share on the chat and just tell us if you had a real quality conversation that lit you up. A few weeks ago, I had a Zoom meeting with our panelist, Lane. Now, you wouldn't know this, but Lane actually has quite long hair. It's just that he normally coiffures it in such a way that you can't really tell how long it is. Well, his daughter over the weekend had taken to his hair with her hair straightener. And with that grey beard that he's growing, he looked a little bit like a mix between Keith Urban and Willie Nelson. The moment I saw him sitting there on the screen, I just belly laughed for minutes. In fact, I can do you the favour and I can show you what he looked like. There he is. So I pick up the phone and that's what I get on the other end, which morphed into that. And you know, that conversation was a terrific conversation nonetheless. Let me stop sharing that screen. Hang on. Oh, you couldn't see it. Sorry, let's try it again. That's it in case you didn't see it. Can you see that one? So that's what he looked like. Anyway, during that conversation, Lane went on to offer me every kind of support he could to make sure that these webinars come together. There was a strong sense of trust and respect and excitement about what we were doing, and I came away feeling really engaged and energized. I felt like I was part of a team, but we were having fun too. It set me up for the next few hours of the day, to be honest. And these high quality connections in our lives have many benefits as individuals. They produce positive emotions in us which are contagious. So when we get them, we pass them on to others as well. They actually strengthen us physically, emotionally, and psychologically. They're like nutrients in our soil to make us grow healthy. And after these conversations, we come away feeling more optimistic, hopeful, and positive about our futures. They build resilience in us that we can draw on and use in the tough times. And when we have these high quality conversations in workplaces or teams or even sporting teams, they do some incredible things. They build greater loyalty to that club or organisation. These conversations build the social fabric for better collaboration and cooperation, and they increase our effectiveness and productivity. I know that all research says that social cohesion is one of the leading traits of successful organisations. Now, Jane Dutton is a world-leading researcher in this space, and in a recent webinar to address our current needs during COVID-19, she spoke of having a plan or a process to achieve greater social connection when using technology. I mean, who'd heard of Zoom or WebEx or even Teams before all this happened, and now we're becoming technical experts in this online connection. But how can we develop some expertise in having high quality conversations, not just being able to see each other, but make sure those conversations are meaningful? And the first step, she says, is before the conversation, where she says, get yourself prepared before the conversation by ensuring that the technology works. Well, here's the pot calling the kettle black. And you have everything you need for the engagement, including a list of questions that show genuine interest and curiosity in the person that you're meeting with. So before you go into one of these really quality conversations that you want to have, just do some preparation, put a bit of planning in. We've been having these family Zoom dinners, and my wife's parents, who are in their 80s, join us, but typically spend the first 20 minutes trying to get the technology working, with the rest of us texting or ringing them or gesticulating towards the unmute button. And it can detract from the flow of the conversation, but they've actually done really well. They're very good at it now. Secondly, during the conversation, when the magic of connection is happening, Jane Dutton says there's 4 pathways to great connection. She says the first one is respectfully engage. Be respectful of people's time and establish a few ground rules around how long it should last. Jane Dutton suggests that 45 minutes is a good length for a really quality conversation. During the call, let the person know that they are of value and worth to you. Express your appreciation to them. Number 2, try to enable or help that person in some way. See if there's something you can do to help them, and be listening during the conversation for comments that might suggest that they might need some kind of help. Number 3 is building trust. Let them know that they're part of your trusted network. In clubs, we always talk about that circle of trust, the people we can be real with. This understanding of mutual trust in each other is really important. And to establish that, we need to be prepared to be vulnerable. Now, everyone knows that at this time, there's some good things that come from self-isolation, but there's some really tricky things. There's some new issues arising for people. So be prepared to share your own vulnerability, and hopefully the person you speak with will then also share theirs. Another great way to build trust is to offer people responsibility for something meaningful. I found this part interesting. Every person wants to feel that they're part of something bigger than themselves. You may be involved in some kind of community service or just looking to help someone who's struggling. Most people are grateful to be given a chance to contribute into the lives of others. And having that extra meaning and purpose at this time strengthens our well-being. Number 4, be willing to play. Participate in a game. Share funny memes. Turn up wearing funny clothes or mess your hair up like Lane Stretton does. Later on, if you need inspiration, I can bring that picture up again for you to have a look at. So these little things build up the quality of our connections, relax us, open us up. Then lastly, after the call, create some actions from the connection. Be sure to follow up on those actions. This is all part of building trust, doing what we say we're going to do. So maybe text them, let them know that you appreciated the call. If you said you were going to do something, follow through and do it. Now, having said all this, I realise that not all of our interactions are going to be planned, and nor should they. So be sure to let people know that you are also available for spontaneous connections too. And this will happen a little bit less naturally than it did when we were at work and maybe somebody was sitting at the next desk that we could just go and talk to, or you're working alongside someone. But even just sending a quick text to see if someone's available for a chat is a way of respecting their time, but letting them know too that you're thinking of them and you're keen to chat when they're free. So for a quality connection on an online chat or even just a phone call, 3 parts: before, during and after, that require a little bit of effort. And we have 4 takeaways for how to build those high quality connections from today. And I'll bring the slide up at the end, but I'll give them to you now. 4 takeaways. Number 1, respectfully engage. Respect people's time by preparing and having some rules of engagement. Number 2, enabling or helping others. Help the person to achieve something or give them some help with something that they might need some help with. Number 3, build trust, which we do through vulnerability, but also the giving of responsibility. And number 4, be playful, be creative, have fun. Today I'm joined by Ed and Lane again. So welcome Edwina, who's out on her property, which is beautiful, and your hair is blowing in the wind.
Hopefully not too much wind.
And Lane, your hair's not blowing because you've got half a chemist shop full of product in it, but we know what you look like when you let that hair go free.
And I'm very jealous of Edwina being outside in that beautiful environment in the Yarra Valley. I'm only in the Andes. I've decided to come to you from the top of the Andes today.
Well, welcome to you both. And Ed, first day of school today. So you're actually teaching today as well as being involved with us. How did the first day start for you?
Well, teachers started yesterday, Dave, so it was fantastic for teachers to all get together. A little nervous about how it was all going to transpire today, but I was really fortunate. My husband works at Ringwood Secondary College, and the principal, Michael Phillips, there had everyone in a huddle today across using their technology, and it was just so lovely. It was all about, how were people helping one another, and some of the things that you mentioned around high quality connections. In fact, I think I saw all of them today, and it was just so lovely as he encouraged staff. And I think one of the huge things about today is that it is a historical moment for Victorian education, and he was really pointing out that teachers were part of this history, so part of that something bigger than themselves. But it was just a delicate way that he handled the conversation, really bringing the team together, because you've got over 100 plus staff of an enormous school out there working remotely, and it was just wonderful to witness that. So yeah, for me, that's how my day started.
That's terrific. And that whole way that he reframed it from, we have to do things online now because we're forced to instead we get to do this online. We get to be a part of history. We get to interact. And Ed, you were telling me earlier how the kids were just helping each other after the class, that after it had officially finished, they were staying online and just directing each other in really natural ways. I think that's exciting for where education is heading. Maybe we've been forced in a way to do things differently that we'll look back on and go, if we didn't have that opportunity, we wouldn't have discovered just how capable kids are independently like this.
Yeah, the little chat was just terrific. Brendan sort of had the microphone on, but he was sitting in the background, and their natural chat for wanting to help one another, as one kid couldn't put a photo in and someone couldn't be seen, and it was just such an organic way to see conversations coming alive, and kids generally happy to be there. And some of the questions that he asked them too, sort of asking them about their holidays and how they were feeling around their connection online. And you could hear the excitement, which was terrific. And hopefully it's about maintaining that. And I think teachers are going to be important people in the lives of students over the next weeks or so as they connect with them daily. Yeah.
Lane, your experience is in organisational background and employment and yellow box. And in your experience, how important are high quality connections to the success of organisations? And what are some practical ways that they can be achieved?
Yeah, look, isn't that, aren't kids just an inspiration to us? sometimes. As adults in the work environment, you know, we're not immune to actually using children as an example of the behaviour that we actually want to model and want to see in a work environment. It'd be great to see that kind of connection and cohesion. There's a lot of work done in the 1960s around this particular idea of the psychological contract from a work perspective and how important that is to productivity. Sort of prior to that, it was always about, you know, you do work for me and I give you money, and it was very transactional, contract based. But then in the 1960s and now onwards, it's become more an understanding of how do we relate to the work environments and how do we relate to each other and what impact does that have on productivity. And there's been a lot of great studies done. One that springs to mind is a study that was done with nurses, and they interviewed a whole bunch of nurses around what was important to them in the work environment, and relationships was the number one thing. And what they found was that great relationships in the work environment ended up with much higher commitment, much less job stress, increased productivity, increased positivity, and generally people feeling so much better about what it is that they were doing on a daily basis. So some quick things that we might like to think about. I think as maybe a staff member, think about bringing your whole self to work, not just, you know, the employee, because we are human beings and we've got so much more to offer than just completing a task. Bring that sense of fun, light up and light other people up, bring your whole character to the work environment. Model the behaviour that you want to see if you're a leader, and then you set expectations around what other people could and should be doing as well. And I think the flip side of that is call out the behaviour that's not helping to enable the organisation to be successful, because one person in a team can pull a whole team down. So there'd be a few things that we might like to think about in a work context.
No, I think that's terrific. And of course, we had Ian on last week talking about how to have those essential or difficult conversations where, you know, we're very clear on stating those behaviours and then coming out with a positive outcome. And that's good.
I think Dave, James makes a really good point on the chat, where James talks about, you know, what a high quality conversation looks like. And he says it's moving from small talk to medium talk to big talk. And I really love that idea of progressing from, hey, how was the footy on the weekend, to really being able to talk about and share our stories together and develop that kind of intimacy in the work environment through honest conversation.
Yeah, we often talk in our positive coaching courses in the clubs about progressing those conversations with the kids that they coach, from how do you feel about your footy or your netball, which is really natural and easy for people to talk to, you know, how was school today, how are you going with your friends, how are things at home, and just progressing into, you know, a deeper level of connection. Ed, you've mentioned to me this thing about having a high quality connection audit. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, look, it's a really practical tool for us, where we just, on a sheet of paper, we just jot down who in our life lights us up. And I guess I wanted to mention too that it doesn't have to be, these high quality connections can be micro moments. It can be someone really looking at us and smiling, even just acknowledging us when we're feeling you know, a little bit down, or perhaps they've acknowledged we're sitting by ourselves in the workplace, and they come over and just say, how's things? Or it can be we're in the supermarket and we're with strangers and we just look somebody in the eye and genuinely make a connection, and that can equally light us up. So we don't have to assume that these high quality connections have to be big deals. But I think the audit is really important, because it is important that we know who in our lives energize us. And when I'm giving presentations to groups of staff, I often talk about plumbers and electricians. So electricians light us up, and plumbers sort of can suck us dry. So there's no aspersions being cast on plumbers here, of course. But that notion that there is this kind of light up and perhaps just extinguishing our flame too, but we need to know who in our life lights us up. So doing that audit where we write it down on a piece of paper and then have a bit of a look at who's missing from that list, and then maybe there needs to be some work done with some of those interactions, particularly if some of those people are in our families, because we have no, we can't get away from having interactions, but we can feel quite drained when we're having these interactions that perhaps aren't lighting us up. So I think the audit is just quite a helpful thing. And I think a bigger extension of that is when workplaces are able to do this on a bigger scale, and then be able to share that information to see where the energy is coming from and equally where it's not. Because as Lane rightly pointed out, it's so important for leaders. The other, just to add to Lane's point around some research, Google did a really big piece of research in their organisation called Aristotle. Aristotle famously saying the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And they wanted to find out, well, what were the characteristics of their high functioning teams? Imagining it was going to be Harvard graduates or something particularly unique about these teams. And what they found was it was all about social cohesion and connectedness. And it was the little things that they did to build that trust, that respectfully engaging, and probably a lot of playfulness as well, that was able to bring the team together so that everyone feels, or everyone felt that they can contribute. And I guess another word for it is psychological safety within teams. And so I thought that was worth mentioning as well.
I'm going to just go to the chat. We've got people talking about the Teskey brothers, and I'm not sure what that's got to do with. And somebody has said to me, it could be Scott, I'm not sure. How was the footy? Carlton's having a great season. We haven't lost a game in 2020. Well, actually, we have. We played the first round and lost to Richmond. It was a long time ago. We've got people talking about doing their hair inspired by you, Lane. People are actually wanting to show their hair the next time that they come on. Feel free to actually post in pictures of you with your hair in funny ways. We can put them up on our Facebook site. And so good to have some new participants and some good comments going. And somebody is saying, could we continue them on afterwards? We're happy to explore that. Our hope is to connect people so that it's not just us commenting, but others as well. So that's a good suggestion. Ed, I want to ask you about, during a time like this, there's been some people who I haven't connected with in a long time, but even today I got a text message from an old teaching colleague who just said, I'm just thinking about you and thought that I'd write to you. Just talk to us a little bit about people who maybe really matter to us, but through the passage of time and busyness, they've become kind of lost in our lives, but they were very meaningful at a certain time. How important is it, that we go back into our past and perhaps reconnect with those people?
Well, I think it's all about, is this an opportunity to light them up and light ourselves up? I think I mentioned on our a couple of earlier webinars about Kevin Gosper, who has been a long-term mentor of mine. So I took the opportunity to write him a card, and I sent the card to him just to thank him for being a really good listener and just appreciating him for the time that we've spent together over more than 20 years. And he rang me. I took the time, he rang me, we had a little conversation, he appreciated what I'd done, and it really did light me up. The conversation probably lasted for less than 5 minutes, and we think that we have to put oodles of time into things, and we just don't. And I had a colleague that I worked with probably 15 years ago contacted me on LinkedIn, so we caught up again. And I think with some of these people and a large number of people in our past, we can pick up with them now, and it doesn't seem like those 15 or 20 years are that length of time. We can sort of pick up where we left off, and I think that's the true value of friendship and quality connections from the past and how sustainable they are.
No, that's good. Tim mentions, Lane, that background looks like that white cloud is your big hair. So people are still fixated on your hair.
Yeah. Can I just pick up on a point that Ed made, Dave? And I think it's, a really important one. This is not just about allowing other people's energy to light us up, but it's about the contribution that we make to others. And oftentimes those things are done without really bringing conscious decision making to it. It's just a natural thing, a kind word, a glance, a tap on the shoulder, you know, a quick text. I got a letter this morning, a card from someone in Queensland with just a note in it saying, hey, having to think about you and thought I'd send you a card to say hello. What a great way to start, you know, my day this morning. I don't think I can remember the last time I received a card. So that kind person has taken some time to handwrite something and send it to me. So what can you do today to light up the world of another individual? And how do we work on the character muscles associated with that so that that becomes a thing that we do on a daily basis, time and time again, without even having to bring conscious thought to it?
I love that.
Jane Dutton, oh, sorry, I was just finishing on from that. Sorry, Dave. Jane Dutton talks about looking at our roles and our routines and how we can being quite strategic about how we do that in our day. Is it we're going to encourage one person a day? Are we going to spend 5 minutes to front and back end our days thanking someone for perhaps what they've done, but being really intentional about that, and that is, you know, part of our role and part of our routine, and making that a habit will certainly bring that energy to our work day, but also to someone else's work day.
I had a number of other questions, and this session's gone really, really quickly. But I do just want to quickly acknowledge a comment from Annette that says it can be draining when you're the person lifting others up too. And I just want to briefly talk about that whole notion of, you know, some conversations fill our bucket and some conversations empty our buckets. And I think we have to keep those in balance. And if we have too many people that empty our bucket, then we have to do some things that energise us. But when we're energised, then we can go, okay, I've got the capacity now to speak into some of those needier friends that I have in my life at the moment. And you know, sometimes those roles change when we're the one who's needy. I'm going to quickly share the screen, and we're going to have another quick look at Lane's hair, just because that's the slide that's up. And that gives us a bit of a laugh. And we move on to our 4 steps to a high quality connection. To remind people, and this will go up on our Facebook site, respectfully engage. Respect people's time by preparing and having some rules of engagement. Enable or help others. Help the other person to achieve something that they need help with. Build trust, which comes by being vulnerable, by giving generously, by giving responsibility. And number 4, be playful, be creative, and have fun. There it is again. Coming up on Friday, we're going to be talking about self-care, which relates to what Annette was saying. And we're very fortunate to have Larice Temple. She's the Managing Director of the Ripple Effect Institute to come and talk to us. She's going to be doing the editorial section that I do most times. So we'd love to have you join that. And then next week, we've got 3 sessions. On Monday, no sport, no friends, what now? And I reckon if you know anyone who's got kids who play sport and they're missing both the physicality but also the connection, Anthony Phillips, who was the founder of Camp Australia and works at Oakley Chargers in footy, is coming to speak to us. He'll be our guest presenter. Then on Wednesday and Friday of the following week, we're talking about values and strengths. So what drives you? That's our value set. And what are your superpowers? What are your strengths that when you're operating in them, you're in that state of flow, you're energized, you're at your best? And there's some terrific research about that. We'd love you to let people know about us. If this has been valuable to you, pass on the link. We've had some schools that have passed it on to their teachers. And we're free, of course, because of Bendigo Bank, because of Eastland, because of FC Business Solutions. I went past the Lifeline slide. If anybody is really struggling in any way, that's the number, and we put it up each time just in case somebody has that need, 24/7, Lifeline. So we're going to conclude, and I'll just conclude by saying it would be great if we could change the conversations from one of social distancing to physical distancing. It'd be great if we could use this time of physical isolation to develop more high quality connections. We encourage our community to socially connect as often as you can, to share the highs and the lows of this time of isolation, and to come out of this time better, stronger, more connected, more empathetic, more resilient, more grateful. We are grateful to you, our SALT community. So see you next Friday, and just thank you for your attendance today. We won't leave it open today, but we do suggest if you want to keep the dialogue going, go to our Facebook site where we can have you connect with one another. Thank you so much.